About a month ago, when I was still traveling in New Zealand, I'm currently in Australia now, I was sitting in a park and just stretching after the workout and the run that I had just done, just really trying to relax and wind down from this day that I had, and just really trying to feel present and just enjoy this time that I had in the city because I was going to be leaving the next day. And while I was sitting there was this kid who just kind of rode by on his scooter, and I just saw him, he kept looking at me while he was riding by, to the point where he almost crashed into a tree off the path, and he just kept looking at me and wouldn't stop. And I kind of was just wondering why he was staring at me like that. And eventually he kind of rode off, and I could still see him looking at me from a distance, and eventually he kind of rode away, and I just didn't think much of it, and I just kept stretching. And eventually he came back and was giving me that same death stare the whole way through while I was just stretching. And eventually he kind of stopped in the path, and we kind of just locked eyes for a second because I wanted to know why he was just looking at me. And he stood there for about 15 seconds just looking at me, and I was just kind of focused on stretching, right? And eventually he kind of gets my attention. He's like, hey, and I'm like, yeah. He's like, this, go like this. And eventually it clicked in my brain that he just wanted me to flex. So I kind of rolled up my sleeve and gave him one of these and did this. And the look on his face, he was like, oh my God, oh, and pointing. And it was just this wholesome moment where to see his reaction to something that I put a lot of time into, which is my fitness, and just seeing how cool he thought it was that I had some decently sized arms, was just a wholesome moment. And what this did was really made me think back to those days where I was skinny as hell. I was a legitimate toothpick. Back in when I was 14 and before I started lifting weights, I weighed about 90 pounds. I was 5'2", 5'3", and I was a small kid, and I really didn't hit puberty till 15 pretty much. So I was a small kid, and I distinctly remember for basketball season when we got our jerseys, they had they didn't have sleeves or anything. They just had they're kind of a tank top thing. And I remember I put mine on without an undershirt or anything, and I just remember staring at myself in the mirror and how small, and being so insecure about the size of my arms and how small I was compared to the other people in my grade who were kind of starting to grow and get taller. And I just remember thinking there's no way I will never stop being insecure about this. And just really sitting there in that park, just reminiscing about all that time and all those workouts that I pushed myself through to get to here and get to this point, was just a really wholesome memory. To see that some little kid thinks it's cool that I have decently sized arm, when before I was always feeling down about that part of myself. And it just really made me start to look back on a lot of things that I've done in my life and to see the progress that I made. Because so often, as someone who's very progress oriented and always focused on the future, which if you're watching a video like this, I'm gonna guess you're kind of the same. You always want to be focused on your goal and working towards that new thing. We can get so caught up in always trying to be better and trying to push ourselves to that goal, and just can't wait till we get to that, and just can't wait till we get to that goal. But oftentimes it's really important, even if it's just for a little while, to take a step back and look how far you have actually come and how much progress you have actually made, which I've struggled with doing a lot. I've always been oriented in the future, right? We want to get there, and it's good to make progress, and it's extremely beneficial to enjoy your path. But if you get too focused on that initial goal, you will miss a lot of moments along the journey, and you will miss things that you can enjoy along your journey. If you're climbing up a mountain, it's good to have that goal of what the view is going to at the top, but there's going to be certain checkpoints and certain places where you want to stop and appreciate the view where you are as well, because the view from the top is great, but sometimes it's beneficial just to stop and take a look at how far you've actually climbed up on your way to the top. And not only just does it serve as enjoyment for the present moment and just really to take it in, it serves as motivation for the future, and knowing that where you can get to really doesn't seem that far away. Because I've had goals and stuff that I felt I can't hit this, so I'm not at 1,000 subscribers right now. When I actually take some time and look how far I've come and where I started, I just think man, this is nothing. I've already been through I've already been through so much. I remember when I was spending 6-7 hours every single day on social media, my mental health was absolutely terrible. I had like absolutely no friends. I was extremely insecure, and I've worked my way up to improve all these things. Just something like YouTube or growing a channel, it doesn't really seem all that intimidating. I've gone through that journey many times with different aspects of my life, and this is no different. I've already done all the work. I just need to keep going, and like everything else, I will keep going, and eventually I'm gonna get to where I want to get to. But it is really beneficial to just stop and look back how far you've come, and just appreciate your younger self and all the work that you put in, and be proud of that. Take some time, and not necessarily just like YOLO, enjoy, like, and just go party and do drugs and stuff. That's not what I'm saying. But be grateful for how far you've come. Be grateful for the progress that you've made. Be grateful for those days where you did something that you didn't want to do, and you sacrificed for your future self to get to that better place. Look how many times you've improved even though you didn't want to. And if you're in a place right now where you feel sad and you wish you were back at that place, the thing is, if you once were there, you can get there again. You can't remember something you didn't experience. If you remember being happy and you remember having those joyous moments, you can feel that again because you've experienced. I can't remember what it feels like to have 1,000 subscribers because I've never had 1,000 subscribers, but I can remember what it feels like to get that PR or actually make a bunch of friends when at one point I had 0, or talk to people when I was extremely insecure, or start traveling. Like, I remember what it feels like to get that milestone. So getting to the next one really isn't all that hard if you can look back and have that catalog of experiences. This does a lot for your confidence too, because we can often get so caught up in beating up on ourselves right now and thinking that like, oh, I didn't do this, and like, oh, I suck right now. But when you look back and see how many things you've done, and you have that catalog of experience, like, oh, I've run a marathon, I've put out 2 albums, I've lifted all those weights, and I've built this physique for myself. When you can look back in that, you can reassure yourself that you're gonna be all right, you're gonna make it, because you made it out of things and you've done hard things before, and this is no different. All that stuff was just training you for this moment, and now you're ready. So as long as you keep pushing forward, eventually you're gonna get to where you wanna go. Now, with that being said, if you don't know already, my name is Colby Wallace. I'm an 18-year-old artist from Canada, currently traveling in Australia, and if you like videos like this about how to improve yourself, and also want to hear some of my original music, you should subscribe. It's a win for you, it's a win for me. And if you want to join our free community on how to break your phone addiction and start using social media in a productive way, there is a free community with a full course in the description. Also, my original music is in the description. And with that being said, never stop creating, my friend, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.